Chief, the mini systems fire on February 15th. What's involved in investigating a fire like that one?
So thank you. So when we have an investigation after a fire, we have our own internal fire investigators. But then we also, with a commercial loss like that, or a large loss, or a loss of life, we ask the state to come out, and the state has its own investigative team, and they work together to identify the origin of the fire. They could tell by burn patterns and what's more charred than other areas where the fire started in the vicinity, and then they try to deduce through what they could see, what was around it, information from interviews with people who were near there or involved in it, what the cause was. Sometimes we can be very specific. We know what the cause is. Somebody says, I know what happened, this happened, I did this. Other times we have to make some assumptions and call it probable, and that's what kind of happened in this case. The origins of the fire were around a chemical tank, and which has electric heaters in it. You could see by the burn patterns that the fire started there, but because of the damage that resulted, it's hard to know specifically, was it this heating element or that heating element, or was it the wires? We know that that was the source of ignition, but which part, so that's why we call it as undetermined with a probable cause, involving some type of electrical issue, whether it be the heating element, wiring, something related to that tank in this particular case.
What problems specifically did that fire pose?
So that fire created some issues for us. We had the chemicals in there, which are always a problem. And then also that building is a metal building, so it's kind of like an oven. It's designed, it will hold the heat in just by its sheer design. There's not a lot of places for the heat to escape. So what happened was the fire started and went for a little while, and then the fire alarm system tripped, which notified us. We received a signal from the fire alarm system. Nobody called it in by 911 that there was possibly an issue. A smoke detector or a heat detector went off. We were out in a medical emergency at the time, so with our current staffing, we had to leave the ambulance by themselves and respond with our 2 firefighters and a fire engine. But sometimes these calls are false alarms, it's a malfunction. But when we got there, it definitely was a fire. The fire had already come through the roof. It was going. The heat inside was very, very high, so we couldn't just run inside with our hoses and put the fire out. So what we actually needed to control the situation and cool everything down was this truck right here. This is our ladder truck, tower truck, and very specifically, there's 2 nozzles on the end of this. They call them monitors, and they can flow a lot of water, and they can be aimed either remotely or with somebody up and standing in that platform from above, and you can get a very good view and put it right down where it needs to go and put that fire out. The problem was, with our current staffing, we weren't able to get this truck out the door, and it took us about 25 minutes for people to come in from home, get in this truck, take it there, get it in place, and then get it set up, and then we could finally put the this type of water, what this truck can do, into action, which cooled the fire off, got everything under control, so we could go inside and finish the job. So it's a critical piece of equipment that we needed. It was difficult for us to manage until it got there. We do the best we can. We had great mutual aid help from North Attleboro, Mansfield, Rentham, Norfolk, Bellingham, Foxborough. All these other agencies came and helped us because we just can't do it by ourselves. So, but when you have the right equipment and the right amount of staff, we can really take care of the fire, and we're trained to do so, and it's great when it all comes together.
And a lot of people don't understand, especially when it comes to ambulance runs. I don't know, in a fire like that, mutual aid is not free.
No, mutual aid, we don't get charged per se for a fire. Mutual aid, North Attleboro or Foxborough comes, they don't send us a bill. But what does happen is, let's say there's a cost to Plainville. If an ambulance call comes in and North Attleboro has to send their ambulance, they're going to bill for that call, and that's revenue Plainville won't get because we couldn't put our own ambulance on it. So that hurts our bottom line as a town to fund staffing so we can actually have this truck be available when a fire comes in and we need it. So there's a consequence to it, but we do have mutual aid agreements for fire-based calls where we don't charge each other typically. We help each other, no cost. We do what we have to do. But it's not free to the departments. If North Attleboro or Foxborough or Rentham have to send staff and then call in people on overtime, there's a cost to help us. And the more help we need, the greater the cost to our area partners.
And the cost, of course, when needing mutual aid on an emergency call, every second matters, and
Absolutely.
if an ambulance is coming from North Attleboro or Mansfield to Foxborough, those are minutes that are crucial.
It is. I mean, an example of that is someone who's having a heart attack. The goal is to have somebody who's actually having a heart attack to a catheterization lab, which is where you're going to get real treatment, within 60 minutes. And if we're not available, and North Attleboro is not available, let's say, the next town out could be a 15, 20-minute wait for an ambulance. So we've just cut a quarter or a third of that golden hour just waiting for an ambulance to get there to take them to the hospital. And that's a situation that's painful for us because we don't know what else to do. We do the best we can. We get the help there as fast as we can. But situations like that, minutes matter. And I'd rather get that extra 7 or 8 minutes back and have that being us getting them ready and getting them to the hospital and buying them that extra time to preserve heart muscle. And in stroke patients, it's the same problem. So those are, those are real specific instances where every minute matters.
Chief, as always, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.